Good morning, everyone. I have a wonderful story for you today. It's about Abraham. Have you ever heard of Abraham before? Well, this Abraham is alive today, and he lives in Africa. He is a Maasai. Maasai is a people that live in the middle of Africa, and they own a lot of cattle, and they milk cows and sell the cows and take them out to pasture and just in general take care of them. But this man, Abraham, was pretty wealthy. He owned 1,000 cows, and he also owned many sheep and goats. Well, he got to listening to a radio in Africa. It's actually in Tanzania, and it's called Adventist World Radio. And as he was listening, he heard things that he'd never heard before about the Bible. And the more he listened, the more he liked it. Because the Maasai, they have a lot of beliefs like we do. They believe that when someone dies, that they just go to sleep. And they believe in the Bible. And they believe in Jesus as God's Son, the Son of God. And then he learned about other things too, and finally he became a Christian. And he started going to church and on Sabbath, on Saturday. And then he learned about paying tithe. And being a rich man, he decided that, well, if I need to pay tithe. So he gathered up all of his cattle and all of his sheep into big pens, and then he would let them out. Well, I need to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and they'd go in one pen, and then the 10th one, he'd make a mark on the 10th and put them in another pen. Those were for God. He was paying tithe. And he did this with all of his cows and all of his sheep and all of his goats. And his friends and his neighbors says, that guy's crazy, because the Maasai think that cattle are more important than people are. They like their cows better than they do people. And so they thought he was really crazy. And they made fun of him, called him names and all sorts of things. And finally, about 9 months later, after he did this, his cows began to have their babies. And guess what they were having? They didn't just have one baby, they were having twins. And cows very seldom ever have twins. But they were having lots of twins. And his sheep and his goats were having triplets. 3 of them at a time. And his friends and neighbors, they quit making fun of him. And over there in Africa, they have a lot of trouble with people stealing other people's cows and sheep and goats. And they would steal Abraham's too. And before he was a Christian, they would take him and keep him. But since he became a Christian, every time they would steal Abraham's cows, his cows would always find a way to get back home again, just like they were being guided by an unseen hand. And so finally, these friends and neighbors, they quit making fun of Abraham, and they went to Abraham's pastor, and he says, we want to be Seventh-day Adventist Christians too, and we want to pay tithe. And they says, well, you're not members yet. That says, we don't care. We want to pay tithe anyway, because we see how God is blessing Abraham, and we want God to bless us too. Well, then there was a man another rich Maasai rancher, and he had a big pond that he would charge his neighbors and other people who had big herds of sheep and goats and cows. He would charge them to come and water their stock at his watering pond. Well, Abraham, he had an idea. So he built a big pond bigger than his neighbors, and he put water in it, and he told his friends and neighbors and people that had cows and cattle that they could come and water their livestock at his pond for free. He wouldn't charge them. And then what he did is, but he says, you have to listen to my evangelist or preach. So he hired an evangelist to come down to his pond, and his evangelist preached to the owners of these cows and sheep and goats while they were watering their sheep. Today, because of Abraham, over 35 people have been baptized because of what Abraham has been doing by paying his tithe and by preaching and inviting other people to listen to Adventist World Radio. And you know, that may be one of the ways that this gospel is going to be preached to the whole world, because it says in Matthew 24:14, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached as a witness unto all nations, and then the end will come. Jesus is coming again then. And you know, we can help him come by telling others around us, and we can help too by sending our money sometimes to places like Adventist World Radio, where they can preach the gospel, and it can go places where people can't go. So thank you for hearing the story today, and you can go back to your seats now.